The National Desk, America's News Now. Right now, excessive heat and raging fires, two issues happening in different parts of the country, colliding in the Northwest, putting people there in greater danger. Then the Teflon Don moniker taking on a new meaning with the new RICO charges levied against Donald Trump and his associates in Georgia.
RICO was meant to cover mafia cases. It was meant to cover international drug organizations. This charge is really a nuclear bomb where a bullet would have been appropriate.
And Addicted America, the astounding numbers just released about how many people have a family member hooked on alcohol or drugs. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Right now, storms are hitting the East Coast from Virginia all the way down to Louisiana, bringing severe thunderstorms to cities like Norfolk, Raleigh, Macon, Pensacola, and New Orleans. These thunderstorms could bring some high winds and flash flooding to portions of the coastal mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. And we just can't seem to catch a break right now. Look at this. According to the National Weather Service, today is now the 69th consecutive day with at least a slight risk for severe weather in the country. It is the longest streak on record since the introduction of a 5-tier category system in the fall of 2014, and the longest streak ever that was recorded in 2011 when there were 105 days. Nearly 90 million people in the U.S. right now are under heat alerts, covering areas in the Northwest and the West, the Southwest as well. The Northwest, though, that's areas facing some of the hottest temperatures we've seen all summer. Portland, Oregon, hitting an August record of 108 degrees yesterday. Overnight lows could be much warmer than average in many areas, increasing health risks there. The heat wave in the region could last until at least Thursday. Meantime, parts of the South forecast to cool down this week, but dangerous heat will continue in some areas of Texas and Florida. Wildfires are reducing air quality for several parts of the Northwest. Crews there fighting the Lookout and the Bedrock fires in Oregon. Meantime, people are evacuating. The Bedrock fire is covering more than 25,000 acres now. The Lookout fire, even bigger than that, at over 27,000 acres. But the smoke from these fires, that can spread even farther out. The air quality index is as high as 354 in places like Oak Ridge, Oregon. Developing now, Donald Trump speaking out on his social media platform Truth Social today, announcing he will be hosting a press conference at 11 a.m. Monday morning. Now, this, of course, follows news of the 4th criminal indictment brought against the former president, this one in the state of Georgia. Trump says he will unveil what he claims is an irrefutable and conclusive report on presidential election fraud in Georgia that he says will exonerate him and all others named in this indictment. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp replying to Trump's post, stating, "The 2020 election in Georgia was not stolen. For nearly 3 years now, anyone with evidence of fraud has failed to come forward under oath and prove anything in a court of law. Our elections in Georgia are secure, accessible, and fair, and will continue to be as long as I am governor." 18 people are charged alongside the former president in Georgia, and many are names that you're familiar with. Among them, former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, attorneys John Eastman and Sidney Powell, and former acting Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark. One of Donald Trump's former attorneys and now co-defendant Jenna Elia responding today to those charges, saying the Democrats and the Fulton County DA are criminalizing the practice of law. That sentiment was shared by a lawyer representing Trump now.
When somebody is given a report, and he has reports that show that there was interference, and you could be advised by one lawyer that says, oh, I don't think so, and you could have another lawyer that says, no, I do think so, and here's some reports. When he says, I want to look into it, I don't trust it, we need to look into it, that's his obligation as a president.
Scott McAfee, the newest judge in the Superior Court of Fulton County, has been selected to preside over this case. He was appointed by the Republican governor, Brian Kemp, and sworn in on February 1st of this year. Before taking the bench, McAfee was the Georgia Inspector General, and that's when he was tasked with overseeing fraud and corruption within Georgia's executive branch. Well, the criminal indictment filed against former President Trump by Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis looks a lot different than the federal indictment against him for alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The political reaction to this is much of the same. The National Desk's Audra Elnashar reports on how Trump's supporters and critics are doubling down.
For the 4th time, power players in the Republican Party are sounding off against an indictment brought against former President Donald Trump. Minutes after it was unsealed, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy wrote, now a radical DA in Georgia is following Biden's lead by attacking President Trump and using it to fundraise her political career.
Between Manhattan and Fulton County and D.C., the most liberal jurisdictions in the country. It's very unfair to President Trump.
Despite his mounting legal trouble, now facing a total of 91 charges across 4 cases, Trump's political momentum in the Republican Party hasn't faded. A new Morning Consult poll conducted before the Georgia indictment showed Trump leading the pack with support from 57% of GOP primary voters. The only other candidate with double digits is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at 16%. Trump's opponents reluctant to criticize him for his alleged crimes, with a few exceptions.
I said over a year ago, that Donald Trump should withdraw from the race because of what he is facing.
Former New Jersey governor and candidate Chris Christie, who's one of Trump's biggest critics, is questioning this latest indictment.
I think that this conduct is essentially covered by the federal indictment. I think this was unnecessary, as to Donald Trump.
On the other side of the political aisle, Georgia Congresswoman Nikema Williams, whose district includes Fulton County, says, in Fulton County, we apply the law equally to everyone, even failed former presidents. The White House declining to comment. One person who is calling out the Republican Party as a whole.
The shadow of Trump looms so large over all of them. The only satisfaction may be that the system is working.
Now, Eugene, as you mentioned, former President Trump's been very active on his Truth Social page, airing his grievances, and we'll hear more from him on Monday from Bedminster, New Jersey, during that major press conference, as he calls it.
Well, we're hearing a lot of him on social media, but next week is also the first Republican primary debate. Will we hear from him there? Will he be there?
We don't know. He's likely still weighing whether he needs to, right? We saw in that poll that was out recently that he is far ahead of even the second place of Ron DeSantis by double digits. So there's the question of, does he need to? And then also, will showing up help or hurt him? Could the entire conversation be taken up by these indictments? We don't know. Trump is sort of flirting with the idea, saying he's tempted, and sort of asking his followers, should I go, should I not? It's possible it doesn't come down to the very last minute, but as of now, he's not committed.
That's some good points, and definitely a unique situation. Andre El-Nashar reporting in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira finally pleaded not guilty to the 4 charges against him in the Mar-a-Lago documents case in Florida today. The judge then gave prosecutors 2 weeks to hand over all discovery files to the defense. The trial for Trump, Oliveira, and Walt Nada is tentatively scheduled to begin in May. New tonight, the mother of the 6-year-old boy who shot his teacher pleaded guilty today to a charge of felony child neglect. Abby Zwerner spent almost 2 weeks in the hospital after getting shot by Deja Taylor's son in a Virginia classroom. That happened back in January. Prosecutors dropped the misdemeanor charge of reckless storage of a firearm as part of a plea agreement. Taylor will have a sentencing hearing on October 27th. The Toohey family is responding to claims that the movie The Blind Side was based on a lie. Sean Toohey said the claims are false and that others got an equal share of the money the family made. Yesterday, former NFL star Michael Oher, portrayed in the film, alleged that the family did not actually adopt him, but instead persuaded him to enter into a conservatorship to make money. Texas is suing Planned Parenthood in a case that doesn't relate to abortion. A hearing was held today. The state removed the organization from its Medicaid program in 2021 and now wants millions of dollars in Medicaid reimbursements from a few years before that to be repaid in addition to fines. Planned Parenthood says it's an attempt to weaken the organization. Happening today, President Biden in Wisconsin talking about his economic policies a week before the first GOP presidential primary debate in that state.
Don't tell me Americans can't innovate. Don't tell me that. Since I took office, I've seen more than $3 billion in private investment in clean energy manufacturing all across Wisconsin. That's Bidenomics. That's investing in America.
President Biden's remarks come after he toured a clean energy manufacturer of onshore wind turbine generators in Milwaukee. Wisconsin's considered crucial for Biden to win re-election. A new app used in 16,000 high schools is causing some privacy concerns. The Saturn app is described as part calendar, part social network. It's a way for students to manage their academic and social lives and also to share their schedules with family and friends. But some parents warn that it exposes their kids to possible danger. The National Desk's Stephanie Esquivel is in San Antonio, Texas with the details.
I think the most worrisome part was just how much information that I could see about the students. So I could see obviously their names, profile pictures, rooms, teachers' names.
The application Saturn allows students to manually input their schedules to their respective high school and builds a database that's shared with other users.
You think you're putting your information in for something good, like sharing your school schedule with your classmates, and then there's someone who's just using that information to...
The Saturn Communications team released a statement saying they are aware how fast the application is growing and that parents and users have safety concerns. The release explains that new verification protocols are being implemented. Users will no longer be able to access anyone else's information until they prove they are a student by verifying their school email.
In today's world, you're not going to stop it. But you do need to know, you do need to be aware as a parent what their social media activities are.
San Antonio Police Chief Willing McManus says technology teens are using to communicate keeps revolving, but some ground rules need to be implemented for all online presence.
You can't be online with strangers. You got to be careful what you post. You don't want to reveal all your personal secrets online.
From our point of view, the worst case might be that somebody in the school that has a beef with her would know where she's at and would then cyberbully her or, find her around the school and pick on her.
That was Stephanie Esquivel reporting. Coming up here on the National Desk, the death toll keeps climbing as firefighters work to contain the wildfires in Hawaii. How other states are now helping. Then the widespread impact of substance abuse in the U.S., what new numbers reveal. And how therapy dogs are sniffing out stress, who they're helping overcome anxiety. We'll be right back. Right now, officials in Hawaii say at least 99 people are dead as a result of the wildfires there. They add that hundreds are still unaccounted for, with crews and cadaver dogs having searched just 32% of the affected area at this point. FEMA is moving people from shelters to hotels, helping with search and rescue, and also helping financially. Governor Josh Green said a few hundred people are now in hotels. Teams from Washington State are in Hawaii, helping with the recovery as well. The National Desk's Hannah Knowles has more on those efforts.
Lahaina is done. Lahaina will never be the Lahaina I've known it to be.
New snapshots show a small fraction of the heartbreaking damage to the historical town of Lahaina.
It looked like a war zone.
Photos and videos taken from the ground hardly do justice when it comes to understanding the devastating impacts.
Absolute destruction. Beautiful, very tight-knit community that's now been reduced to ashes.
75 Washington personnel now deep in search and recovery efforts, an additional 30 members sent to Maui to try and find the hundreds of people unaccounted for.
Our job, and we're going to be here until it's finished, is to search all these structures, search all these cars that were burned, be able to give that accountability, mark all the buildings that might have been damaged.
Angel Badoa sent me these photos of what was once his neighborhood. Through tearful eyes, he shares moments from the terrifying night.
The police officers drove through our neighborhood with the bullhorn saying we need to evacuate. And some people stayed or waited longer.
Along with his home, he also lost his business, neighbors, and memories he will never get back.
Our goal is to get in and out as fast as we can so we're not a burden on the locals and the local community.
That was Hannah Knowles reporting. President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden plan to visit Hawaii to survey the damage themselves from those wildfires and to see what more aid would be needed there.
Every asset they need, we'll be there for them. And we'll be there in Maui as long as it takes. As long as it takes. And I mean that sincerely.
To your money now, Americans did more shopping last month. Retail sales up by 0.7% from June to July. That's according to the latest data from the Commerce Department. It came after a revised 0.3% increase the previous month. The numbers show that consumer spending is still fueling a resilient economy now. Still, higher interest rates took a toll on spending that depends on credit. Things like homes, cars, and furniture, those pricier items. The firm UBS has to pay a $1.4 billion settlement for misleading statements in selling mortgage-backed securities. This would resolve the case the Department of Justice brought forward to investigate the role of Wall Street firms in the 2008 financial crisis. The DOJ also accusing the bank of defrauding investors. UBS says the settlement deals with a legacy matter. A new poll sheds light on the widespread impact of substance abuse here in the U.S. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, 2/3 of Americans say they or a family member have been addicted to alcohol or drugs. 3 in 10 say they or a family member have been addicted to opioids. Less than half, 46%, say they got treated for that addiction. Nearly 188,000 dementia cases in the United States each year may have been caused by air pollution. That's according to a new study published in the JAMA Network Open. It found that poor air quality from wildfires and farming were most strongly connected to dementia. The study's authors say they hope the research leads to better interventions. Hunter Biden's lead criminal defense attorney is asking for permission to withdraw from the case. Christopher Clark says he could be called as a witness soon to the drafting of the plea agreement, which is now in question. Federal prosecutors reached an impasse on Biden's deal related to tax offenses and a diversion agreement to resolve a gun possession charge. Biden's lawyers still think the deal is valid and binding, but the judge in the case wants more information. Today marks 2 years since the Taliban seized control of Kabul amid the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. On August 15th, 2021, the Taliban marched into Kabul as Afghanistan's U.S.-backed president fled the country. Since returning to the power, the group has cracked down on girls' and women's rights there, also restricting their access to education and employment. This as the UN warns of the growing humanitarian crisis in the country. Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned them this needs to change to gain acceptance on the world stage.
The path to any more normal relationship between the Taliban and other countries will be blocked unless and until the rights of women and girls, among other things, are actually supported.
Another political leader in Ecuador is now dead. Pedro Briones, a local leader of the party of former President Rafael Correa, was shot and killed yesterday. This comes after presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio was assassinated just last week, and the mayor of Manta, Agustin Intriago, was killed last month. The former head of counterintelligence at the FBI's New York field office pleaded guilty today to a conspiracy charge over his involvement with a sanctioned Russian oligarch back in 2021. Charles McGonigal was a 22-year FBI veteran who retired in 2018. He could now face up to a maximum 5-year term in prison. Cincinnati Bengals running back Joe Mixon is expected to take the stand tomorrow before the defense rests in an ongoing case over allegations that Mixon pointed a gun at a woman in an alleged road rage incident that happened in downtown Cincinnati earlier this year. Mixon faces one misdemeanor count of aggravated menacing, but maintains that he's innocent. The trial resumes tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Sam Bankman-Fried has been accused of using stolen money for more than $100 million in political campaign contributions before the 2022 midterm elections. An amended indictment says the 31-year-old FTX founder told 2 FTX executives to get around contribution limits by donating to Democrats and Republicans and to hide the source of those funds. The police search of a small-town newspaper in Kansas could have been a First Amendment violation. It also could have had a deadly outcome, according to some. Kayla Gaskins joins us now from Washington, D.C. with that story.
It was a scene the small-town Kansas newspaper didn't see coming.
It's shocking, to say the least. These kinds of newspaper office raids are almost unheard of in this country or in any country that protects a free press.
Marion police raiding the office of the Marion County Record, confiscating computers, cell phones, and other items. The search, part of a case where a local restaurant owner accused the paper of obtaining damaging personal information through illegal means. The newspaper's editor, Eric Meyer, claims they did nothing wrong.
What really happened was a source sent us that information.
A simultaneous raid executed at the home Meyer shared with his mom, the paper's co-owner, 98-year-old Joan Meyer. She died the very next day, her son blaming the stressful ordeal.
But it's not only I who believe that. The coroner who handled her case and who was her family physician for many years thinks so too. So the last 24 hours of a 98-year-old woman's life was devoted to pain and anguish.
The raid alarming advocates of free speech.
The framers of our Constitution tried to safeguard against this kind of arbitrary and excessive government action. This is precisely the kind of abuse that the First Amendment was adopted to prevent.
Bob Korn-Revere, chief counsel for the Freedom for Individual Rights and Expression, says a subpoena, not a raid, would have been the appropriate course of action for this case.
Kansas's governor says she's keeping a close eye on the case, while the paper's publisher, Eric Meyer, indicates they'll pursue a federal lawsuit. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Still to come here on the National Desk, stress-sniffing therapy dogs, who they're helping overcome anxiety. We're back in 90 seconds. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
K9 for Warriors, a nonprofit that works with veterans in law enforcement, has seen just how successful therapy dogs are for providing emotional support and comfort for officers. A huge part of the organization's mission is to end suicide among law enforcement by providing help and resources, in this case in the form of a furry companion. And that's how Angel ended up at the Okeechobee County Sheriff's Office. She was donated by K9s for Warriors. She is trained to sniff out stress and calm people who are experiencing anxiety. And in her short time, she's already proven her worth, getting even the toughest deputies to stop and smile and helping victims find the courage to speak their truth on their darkest days.
It's really tough.
Columbus City Schools hosting hiring events, trying to bring in more drivers to fill these hundreds of routes.
We need about 147 more drivers to be into our ideal situation.
And ideally, CCS would like to have 650 drivers. Right now, they have 503 drivers on staff, but they want more to make sure they can keep routes going even when people call out sick. Speaking of routes, there are 515 routes so far this school year. 410 of them are covered by CCS, the remainder covered by contracted drivers.
We'll take anybody that wants to learn, and we'll teach you.
Experts say bus driver shortages is an issue impacting nearly every district in Central Ohio, and parents should be prepared.
seeing the watermark. It was like bringing back bad memories, so we wanted to cover it up.
When Jessica Hudson and her mom Rhonda think back to a year ago living along Campbell's Creek, they remember going to sleep on this day and then waking up at about 4 a.m. to chaos.
You couldn't see nothing but water. And then a few minutes later, it started coming in our house through the house fence. And we just had to hurry up and get out of here quick.
With flooding in areas like Campbell's and Hughes Creek, Kanawha County still did not meet the damage threshold and was denied FEMA assistance. In Fayette County, Smithers was also hard hit. Fayette was approved FEMA assistance, but only for public property, as Smithers lost $14 million worth of sewer line and about $635,000 worth of city property.
Coming up here on the National Desk, half of the Women's World Cup Championship now set, the latest scores, and who hits the pitch next. YouTube says it is fighting medical misinformation. The Google-owned video platform plans to crack down on videos that discourage what the company calls proper medical treatment. YouTube says the policy will apply to specific health conditions and treatments for diseases like cancer, where content may contradict local health authorities or the World Health Organization. One half of the Women's World Cup Championship is now set. Spain defeating Sweden in New Zealand 2-1. Sweden had already knocked out the U.S. in the round of 16 last week. But England plays Australia tomorrow morning. Then the winner of that match will play against Spain for the Cup Sunday at 6 a.m. Eastern. That's all for now. Join me again tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. You want to check your local listings for the exact time. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.